Okay, so this is your data set. I made a fake data set so I don't reveal like all the correct answers and everything. So we got the heart rate data set open, step one. Step two, we're supposed to sort the quantitative variables by class. Male at resting heart rate and female at resting heart rate. So that's the class is right here. It's the zeros or the ones. You're either a zero or a one according to this data set. So since the data comes pre-sorted, you've already done step two. You don't have to really do anything there. It's already sorted. Supposed to use Excel data analysis toolpack to calculate each of the following: the mean of each quantitative variable. It doesn't explicitly say this, but they're talking about the mean for males at resting heart rate and the mean for females at resting heart rate. The variance we can do, same with standard deviation, create a table, transfer summary results to Word, and then do some interpretation, talk about what those numbers mean. Okay, so real quick, the last step, question 6, the mean and the median. Actually, you don't have to calculate the median. Okay, so the mean is an attempt to measure a typical value in this data set. Where's the center? Where's the average resting heart rate for the data set? The variance and the standard deviation are both measuring the same thing. They're both measuring how spread apart the data set is. Okay, so a big variance means there's a whole bunch of variation between the numbers. You could get one resting heart rate's 70, one resting heart rate's 85. Okay, so that's what standard deviation and variance are talking about. Standard deviation is trying to measure. It's an attempt to try to measure how much spread you should expect between one value and another value. The variance is talking about the spread of the entire data set. So, well, they both kind of are. So, okay, so variance, standard deviation, talking about how far spread apart the data set is. So here's what I'd do if I was, trying to complete question part 3. Because in part 4 they ask you to make a table. Let's make our table right now, and then we'll calculate the numbers. So our table is supposed to separate things according to gender. So I got gender 0. And you'll notice my numbers change because I've used randomized numbers, so don't worry about that. Yours won't do that when you're working. I want the mean, the variance, and the standard deviation for gender 0. Okay, so I can put the mean, variance, and the standard deviation right under there. And I need to do that for both the resting heart rate and the after exercise heart rate. Okay, so if I want the mean for gender 0, then I'm going to type equals average, open a parentheses, and then you can click and drag the resting heart rate. And remember, this is for gender 0, so I'm only going down here. Okay, I'm not doing it for the entire data set because they asked us to separate it according to gender. So there's my mean of the gender. And actually, I can stop this from randomizing. I have the power. There we go. Okay. I want the variance. Remember, this table is for gender 0, so I want the variance for gender 0. So I'm going to type equals var.s, and you almost always use var.s, not var.p, okay? And then you want to click and drag, just make sure you're only selecting gender 0. So when I click and drag, I'm stopping here. And close the parentheses. The standard deviation, type equals stdev.s, open a parentheses, and then this is for resting heart rate, so I click and drag the resting heart rate, and then close the parentheses. Okay, so for gender 0, I found the mean, variance, and standard deviation for resting heart rate like they told us to do in step 3. Step 3 is not done though. I need the after exercise mean, variance, and standard deviation. So you do the same thing, equals average, open a parentheses, click and drag, but I don't want all those ones in there. Right now I'm making my table for just gender 0. So there's the mean, and then you repeat the same process. Then you got to make another table for gender 1. You want to do the same thing, mean, variance, standard deviation. And you got to split it up based on resting heart rate and after exercise heart rate. Okay, so once you fill out all those cells just like you're doing up here, then you've got step 3 all done. And you got step 4 done too because you made the table. And step 5 says you just need to copy and paste this into a Word document. So you can highlight it and copy it. Should be able to paste it in a Word document and then interpret what all those numbers mean. The typical resting heart rate for gender 0 was 75 beats per minute roughly. And the variance and standard deviation were these numbers. So that means, the most meaningful thing to do here is to compare the standard deviation resting and after exercise. Did the standard deviation go up or did it go down? You can compare the mean. The mean obviously went up because after you've exercised, your heart's working harder. So those are the types of comparisons you're supposed to be making in this part. Okay, I think that's everything. The videos here with the data analysis tool pack with this cool little graphic to show you how to do all that stuff. All right, but you don't have to do it. What I just did was not using the data analysis tool pack. So that what I just did works in every version of Excel, also works in Google Sheets.